Politico reported on September 24th that Jared Kushner, along with his wife Ivanka Trump, had set up private email accounts that they've been using to conduct at least some White House. This is obviously an issue because private email was a major campaign talking point for President Trump in the 2016 campaign, specifically Hillary Clinton's use of it.
Hillary Clinton is a criminal who destroyed 33,000 emails after a congressional subpoena was issued. Can't do that. She's a criminal.
He, at certain points in the campaign, would talk about the fact that he thinks she should be in jail for these things that she'd done with her private email server.
She deleted the emails. She has to go to jail.
I don't think we can undersell how important this was to the 2016 campaign and how much of a point of emphasis this was for the Trump campaign. The difference, I think, in this case, at least according to what we know right now, is that Hillary Clinton set up her own private server and used it exclusively as Secretary of State. Also, she was, of course, as Secretary of State, dealing with all kinds of national security matters. As far as the current situation, I think is a problem for them, and I think this is something that they're going to have to explain away in the coming days and weeks.
Ivanka Trump is under fire for using a personal email address for government business while serving in her father's administration. Sounds familiar, right?
This is bigger than Watergate. This is bigger than Watergate, in my opinion.
This morning, the future of President Obama's #1 piece of legislation, his health care law, is now in the hands of the Supreme Court.
The justice's decision will affect tens of millions of uninsured Americans. Chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford is in Washington this morning with the very latest. Jan, good morning.
Well, good morning, Erica. That's right. I mean, this could be one of the court's biggest cases. The justices are going to tackle a question they have never decided and one that could affect almost everyone in this country. Can the federal government force you to buy something? The White House called it a once-in-a-generation reform.
We are done.
Landmark health care legislation pushed through a reluctant Congress without a single Republican vote.
It is an extraordinary achievement.
It's now a hot-button issue for the Republican candidates vying to take back the White House.
Obamacare is wrong. I'll repeal it. I'll get it done.
But the Supreme Court may do that first.
Jan, if the Supreme Court finds the law unconstitutional, what about people who have been relying on the benefits?
Well, that's a great question, and it's unclear. I mean, as part of this massive case, the court is going to decide whether, if it knocks down one part of the law, like the part requiring you to buy insurance, whether other parts of the law can still remain in effect. So this may end up going back to Congress at some point for a whole new law. But Chris, I mean, that just shows how complex this case is. And think about this. The justices normally spend an hour listening to arguments. In this case, they are going to take 5.5 hours. That is the most in modern history.
Jan Crawford.
Her father, then candidate Donald Trump, made Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server while Secretary of State a central focus in his campaign.
Modeling, what does she think she is? She ain't gonna be nothing in life. I would hear all this stuff. Their daughters ended up pregnant. And that's why I always say, be quiet. If you have a daughter, you gotta stop judging others' mothers' parenting. Is that how you say it? I will never say nothing about another girl, be like, oh, she's gonna end up pregnant, because I have daughters. They could end up pregnant.
He used it to drill home the idea that Clinton was hiding her communications and risked sending sensitive information through non-secure channels. As expected, the president's daughter is facing some sharp comparisons to the former Democratic presidential nominee.
So many moments. It's hard to, this is the first time I heard the banjo on a Kingston Trio record. There was the first time I saw the Dillards.
But there are some differences between the two. Ivanka Trump's lawyers told the Washington Post Ms. Trump did not create a private server in her house or office. No classified information was ever included. The account was never transferred at Trump Organization, and no emails were ever deleted. Some were found to have contained classified information, and a trove were deleted.
And Clinton claimed to have not been familiar with the rules. They say they both turned over their emails, but according to the Post, they also hired attorneys who decided which emails to mark as official business.
Here's why it matters. The Presidential Records Act requires all official records from administrations be preserved. Trump says the emails were with official government accounts, therefore saving all correspondence. Clinton said the same. And the practice dates back well before Hillary Clinton, who used former Secretary of State. But Ivanka isn't the only offender, not even in her own family. She shared this private email domain with her husband and senior advisor to the president, Jared Kushner.
So in politics, karma kicks in more quickly than in other walks of life. And it turns out that lock her up chant for Hillary Clinton's use of a personal email account just might backfire on the Trump family, specifically on Ivanka. The Washington Post reports.
You're talking about all fake news. So what Ivanka did, it's all in the presidential records. Everything is there. There was no deletion. There was no nothing. What it is a false story. Hillary Clinton deleted 33,000 emails. She had a server in the basement. That's the real story.
Joining us now is Mike Schmidt from the New York Times. Mike Schmidt, you covered the Clinton email story. How did the Republicans on the Intel Committee, how did they latch on to this issue and unearth what turned out to be some controversial and classified material on her email server? And is it possible that Ivanka, with her foreign policy portfolio, her presence on the world stage, I think Donald Trump left her in his chair at a summit and she spoke in Saudi Arabia, she's been to the wall in Israel, she certainly has a lot of foreign policy in her portfolio as well.
Yeah, what tripped up Clinton was that Senate Republicans sent a letter to this guy called the Inspector General for the Intelligence Community and said, hey, can you go look at Clinton's server and see if there's any classified information there? And the thing about the intelligence community is that it's not hard for them to find classified information. A lot of things are classified. And they got under the hood and they saw some classified information and they told the FBI, and that's where the problem started. So the question will be here, what will the House Democrats do that now have power? Similar problematic things. And will that lead to the same series of events that we saw where the FBI has to go in and look at it and make a conclusion about whether the information was classified and whether it was purposely put? But that is the path that happened to Clinton.
Phil Rucker, it's your colleague's great reporting that brought us this story.